Hi, I'm Leon Lovelace, and this is Unstoppable Force. I got a news story for you, and it's about the protests at the G20 Summit. Hi, this is from Al Jazeera. And fires burn across Hamburg for a second day as police and protesters clashed while the leaders of the world's top economies met for the G20 Summit. Police said at least 196 officers have been injured in clashes, with 83 protesters temporarily detained at the scene and 19 taken into custody. Dozens of protesters have also been injured. On Friday, the day the summit kicked off, some protesters torched cars and trucks, looted retail stores, lit off firecrackers, and blasted music from Jimi Hendrix in a bid to drown out the classical music playing at the concert hall where the world leaders met. Thousands are protesting capitalism, climate policies, and globalization, among other issues. And here's a big problem I have and what we really need to talk about. And the police used water cannon and tear gas to try to disperse protesters as reinforcements put in from across the country to aid Hamburg police. The protests marred a gathering that German Chancellor Angela Merkel had hoped would demonstrate her country's unshakable commitment to freedom of speech and assembly. So I'd say they didn't really achieve that, at least with these protests, because even if people are, being a little violent and trying to start riots, the police do not need to use water cannons and tear gas to force them to stop. Especially with the water cannons and tear gas are just atrocious ways to abuse people because you don't like that. They're getting violent and angry because you're letting the corporations buy you off and crushing them. Okay, she does make a statement here. She says, I have every understanding for peaceful demonstrations, but violent demonstrations put human lives in danger. Not quite. I mean, people will get injured, like it says. 196 officers got injured from these protests, but people aren't really dying from people throwing rocks at them and from vandalizing stores and setting cars on fire. Yes, it's violent and it's not ideal. We don't really like it too much because then the establishment gets upset, and a lot of people that support the establishment just get upset and really, or get outraged at the violence, and they don't get outraged at all the suffering that's happening. So the violence doesn't help all that much. So it's not that great, but mostly gives the establishment a way to, start abusing people. It's a not really good excuse or a good reason to, but that's the excuse is, oh, you're being violent, you're starting a riot, you're destroying stuff, so we're gonna fuck you up to make sure you stop doing this. So I either read this on a different article or I read it or heard it on NPR. And they talked about how the Chancellor Merkel, she shouldn't have put it in Hamburg, a big city, because there's a lot more people that are going to be available to protest and, start riots and things like this, and they should have done it in a smaller city. But I say that's the wrong way to look at it and the wrong way to phrase it and frame the protest, because instead of just helping out the people of Germany and all these other nations and making sure that you hold the corporations accountable, make sure you hold the politicians accountable so they're actually representing the people and not the corporations, then you're not going to be crushing the people. They're not going to start creating and starting violent protests and riots and all sorts of things, because all these things are going to do is just continue as long as you just say, oh, well, let's just try to hide it, or let's try to just minimize it, or shut out protesters and make sure that people aren't able to protest as easy. Let's make sure that the politicians are protected, that sort of thing. So yeah, let's not just help the people, let's just try to prevent protesters from really showing that we're fucking them over.